I'm watching you.
Smile for the camera, thug life.
Wow!
It's showtime!
We have to finish this.
Are you a fan of the Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man? If so, then you may like Arena Wars. Directed and co-written by Brandon SLAGLE and produced by the Mahal Empire, this is a low-budget science fiction movie akin to The Running Man, or if you're not familiar with The Running Man, maybe the likes of The Hunger Games might be a better comparison. So, Arena Wars, it's a futuristic time, I think it's 2045, and the biggest kind of entertainment show out there is Arena Wars, where we have convicts who are on death row fight for a chance of freedom against 7 gladiators, effectively, all of whom have got their kind of their own gimmick, and this is all televised, and obviously it's a blood sport. The gladiators will either kill the convicts, or the convicts will kill the gladiators to win their freedom. And this tells the story of our main protagonist called Bender, Luke Bender, and he is actually an innocent man who has taken the fall for something he didn't do in the military to effectively kind of save his family. And the kind of the producers of this show realise that their ratings are dipping because people just can't empathise with the contestants because they're all criminals. So they decide to coerce this Luke Bender into effectively doing the show to win his freedom, because they think this will be a ratings boost, because they will have a genuine military hero who they can kind of cheer on as a kind of a protagonist. So the idea here is that you have a number of convicts will fight against one gladiator, some of the convicts will die, and then the remaining ones will move on to the next gladiator. So as the progression goes on, you whittle down the amount of convicts, thus making it harder for each time. The convicts are unarmed, the gladiators have weapons, things like this. So that's your kind of your basic setup, and it's a kind of somewhat of a, you know, an action movie with lots of kind of fights and stuff, but it's a little bit of commentary on capitalism, the kind of reality TV and things like this, and movies like The Running Man or The Hunger Games. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So this is a lower budget movie, so don't be expecting the kind of the level of production value with the aforementioned Running Man or Hunger Games. It certainly is a vastly lower budget than those two films. But let's talk about what works. It's a kind of a fun movie, let's be honest. It's a very much an action-orientated movie with lots of fights and things, but all of the characters are quite kind of colourful and charismatic. We have our group of gladiators, all of whom are kind of dressed up in a certain theme. There's like a Harley Quinn looking one, there's kind of like a like an SS kind of Nazi trooper looking one. So they all have their kind of theme, which makes them kind of quite distinct, and different ones will have different weapons. And or even our convicts, even though they are in sort of combat fatigues and stuff, they have, and you know, certainly take a little bit of time to give you a flavour of their sort of personalities. Of course, our kind of our main guy, Luke Bender, is our sort of stoic Marine who is you know, all business and stuff, but we've kind of got this his sort of comedy sidekick relief. You know, we got a couple of other ones. We've got this female MMA former champion. So there's a few kind of characters I do think have a little bit of you know, of stage presence, I guess you would say. And as the movie goes on, we have a few kind of like quite amusing sequences with the crowd, or we have these commentators. One being played by Michael Madsen, who give this kind of colour commentary as the kind of the matches kind of go on, and then we have the manipulation kind of side of things by our producers, which gives it a little bit more meat, or at least it tries to give the actual story a little more meat on the bones, having a little bit more pathos, and again kind of reflecting how corporations and entertainment entities will manipulate even reality TV to kind of get a certain outcome that they kind of want to achieve. So it's a pretty entertaining movie. I mean, it's not a movie which has tons of finesse, I would say, but it's at its core, I think it's for, if you don't mind a lower budget movie, if you don't mind the kind of limitations set by like a B movie, then I think there's lots to enjoy here. And I do think it has definitely shades of The Running Man. I mean, it's clearly its main influence here. So if you're a fan of that film, I would suggest it. And the movie does try and have a little bit more sort of pathos in it by having, let's just say, motivations put to certain people and things like that. It's fairly kind of violent, as you would expect, with a quite a high body count. And, you know, a reasonable amount of blood, although it's not particularly kind of graphic as such. But there's a relatively high body count with kind of, you know, lots of, you know, shots to the head and pickaxes in the back and things like that. So it's kind of quite fun. And it never really slows down once you're going to get started. It's a pretty kind of plucky pace here. I think the characters are kind of well defined. And, you know, it's, for the budget, I would say it looks pretty good. I mean, as they say, they have tried to spice it up with kind of a few kind of external shots and things and kind of this kind of crowd reactions and stuff. So it kind of looks a little bit like a WWF match in kind of many cases. What doesn't work with this movie, I think when it tries to have a little bit more gravitas, this is where the movie kind of maybe doesn't quite achieve. There's a few sequences here where there's some more sort of serious scenes where, you know, we see various plots and machinations by characters to kind of push the storyline in a certain way, and we try to have a few scenes where we have some emotional resonance. These ones I would feel don't really work, and I think with the kind of the schlocky kind of setup and the kind of the colourful WWE style aesthetic that these fighters have, when we have these sequences, I think that's where the movie falters a little bit in its kind of dramatic chops. The acting is B-movie level. I mean, it's fine for a movie like this, but again, it's when we have those sequences where it requires a little bit more of the dramatic side. This is where maybe the movie, I think, just kind of falters a little bit. And then had they lent a little bit more, I think, into the schlockier side and gone full on, you know, bizarro world splatter and have a little bit more high energy in places, then I think maybe it might not be as varied as this movie is trying to be, but maybe it would have been had a little bit more of its kind of identity, so to speak. But I just think in those instances, the dramatic scenes just don't really work. The acting isn't particularly strong, and it almost feels like it's trying to be like there's going to be a surprise. It's going to be like some kind of parody or prank, but it isn't. It is genuinely trying to be somewhat emotive at times. There are times when the budget does kind of show through. The crowd is particularly kind of sparse. You don't get huge shots of like thousands of people. You maybe get like 20 people in the crowd at any one time, and yeah, kind of the budget does show. And bizarrely, despite the violent nature of this movie, I felt a missed opportunity here would have this a lot more gory, a lot more of the kind of like the more explicit sort of kills on display here. Again, it's probably a budgetary restraint here, but yeah, the kills aren't particularly kind of gory. They're so kind of covered in armor and stuff. A lot of the kind of the gladiators, you know, it's you know, to see all that much, and even when you might, the camera will kind of pan away, or we just simply won't have a particularly kind of gory kill and stuff like that. So it's a kind of somewhat shallow movie, even though I would say it has an attempt to have a little bit more of the dramatic side. I think those elements are actually its weakest. But overall, it's a fun movie. I mean, it's not trying to be too sort of serious, so to speak. There's just the odd attempt here to expand the story here, which I do appreciate. It's just not entirely successful, but it is an entertaining movie, and I think if you could watch it, just watch it for the kind of like the spectacle of a WWE match and things like that, with a bit more narrative going on, then you can enjoy it. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? Would you watch it if you haven't seen it? Based on what I've heard, please do let me know, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.